Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savila Samaha Moha Graha Grasaika Karmani. Okay, let's read the verses that we covered last time. Verses 5, 6, and 7. Purno dehe balam yachan akshanam yav pravartakaha vayuv pranamayo nasau atma chaitanya varjanat ahantam mamatam dehe gehadau chakaroti yaha kamadyavasthaya bhrantaha Naso atma manomaya-kośa lina supto vapur bodhe vyapnuyadana-kagraka chichayopeta-dhirnatma vijñānamaya-shabdabhak. So what we see here in Panchadashi chapter 3 is that Swami Vidyāraṇya ji talks about this guha, or this cave. And this cave, within this cave dwells the Atman. And this cave is nothing but the 5 sheaths. And as we said before, the 5 sheaths are not the issue here. It's the identification with the 5 sheaths. And on analysis of each sheath, the nature of it and how we are not the sheath, then we can go beyond the sheaths. So going beyond the sheaths is not a physical task, but it's an intellectual inquiry. And that's what we're doing. Now, for the food sheath or the annamaya-kośa, we saw that we are not the food sheath or annamaya-kośa because the body was not there before birth and the body is not there after birth. And surely there was something before the birth of the body to cause the body to be born in such a way. So there had to be something that caused my body to be this way, your body to be that way. And that is what we call karma. So there has to be a cause. And because the body was not there before birth, we can't be the body. And because the body will not be there after death meaning we have done so many things, and now after death, all the results of those actions have to be experienced. Not all of them can be experienced here and now. And so what will experience them if the body is gone? So therefore, we cannot be this body because it's temporary. And there still has to be something to experience all those results of actions. With this, the annamaya-kośa was dismissed. Then we saw last time the pranamaya-kośa, or the vital air sheath. We saw how powerful it is, that it gives strength and power to our entire body, because it is that which, energizes the body in so many different ways. Even then, even if our pranas, that energy which governs the physiological functions of the body, even if that energy is there in waking, dream, and deep sleep, even if it's there, it still is Chaitanya Varjanat. It still is devoid of consciousness. So that cannot also be the self. And therefore, the prana was also dismissed. Then we went to the manomaya-kośa, the mind sheath. And with this, it said that it's the one that does the I-ness or mindness to our body, to our own mind itself, to the things around us, our family, our relatives, our home. It's this kind of thought that creates this feeling or emotion of attachment. And it is also, the mind is that which is a flow of different emotions. Desire, we have contentment, anger, compassion. It's a flow of all opposing kind of thoughts. And all of these thoughts are not only temporary, but they negate each other, right? When compassion comes, then anger goes. And when compassion goes, anger comes. And if we were really that mind, then we would be that emotion all the time, right? Thankfully, we're not our mind. Otherwise, we would be, angry all the time or joyful all the time. Even being joyful all the time is quite tiring. If you watch a movie that's only joy, you would want to leave that movie because you're looking for, okay, what's going to happen now? It's too happy, right? Even when we're too happy, we feel weird. We feel weird because these emotions aren't really our nature. When we're too happy, in fact, sometimes we ask, okay, I know something's going to go wrong now. We feel that and we know it. And that's why it's true. It's true that it's only temporary. So the mind was dismissed because of its temporary nature, of changing nature, and that it negates, all the emotions negate each other. Then the intellect was analyzed, or the vijñānamaya-kośa, which is the pure I thought, right? It is really the reflection of consciousness. And the reflection of consciousness in waking state, it pervades the whole body up to the nails, so entire body. But in deep sleep, what happens is this pure I thought, it dissolves. It dissolves in deep sleep. Lina suptau is what it said. It dissolves in deep sleep. So my whole individuality is actually gone in deep sleep. And because of that, the vijñānamaya-kośa is dismissed. This I, which we value so much and which we do everything and anything for, that's also dismissed. Now, the question comes to the seekers is why you want to put the mind in one sheath and the intellect in one sheath. Why don't you just put them together? So here now he's going to give an analysis of why we're separating them. And this is Swami Vidyāraṇya's style, right? He takes everything and he analyzes it to the T so that we gain clarity. So we're going to start from there today. Verse number 8. Kartṛtva karaṇatvābhyām kartṛtva karaṇatvābhyām vikriyetāntarindriyam vijñānamanasi antah bahishchaite parasparam kartṛtva karaṇatvābhyām vikriyetāntarindriyam vijñānamanasi antah bahishchaite parasparam. So when you break antara bahishchaite, becomes antah bahishchaite. So here it says, now, antara-indriyam. So antara-indriyam, if you look at the last word in the first sentence, antara-indriyam. Antaha means inner, indriya means instrument. So they are vikriyeta. They are modifications. They're inner instruments which are modifications, or they modify themselves, right? So they're inner instruments which modify themselves. How do they modify themselves? Kartṛtva, with doership, and karaṇatva, instrumentorship. There's such a word. And so the doership belongs to the vijñānamaya-kośa, and the instrumentorship belongs to the manomaya-kośa. So you will see in the second line, vijñānamanasi, right? So doership belongs to the vijñāna-kośa, vijñānamaya-kośa, and the instrumentorship, manomaya-kośa. And one is inner. The vijñānamaya-kośa is inner. It's antaha. And the manomaya-kośa is outer, bahihi. And this is how they function respectively. So the inner organ functions as the agent and also the instrument. Hence, though one, it is treated as two, the intellect sheath and the mind sheath. Their fields of operation are the inner world and outer world. So what does this mean? This means this. First, we'll analyze the word indriya. Indriya itself means instrument. It means that unique instrument which is used for a certain thing, right? That's the definition of instrument. Karana means asadharana karana, that which is a unique cause for something. So for example, fire is the unique cause for cooking. We can, fire or a heating agent is a unique cause for cooking. So here the mind is a unique cause for something. That's why it's called instrument. And the intellect is a unique cause for something. Now the mind is a unique cause for guna dosha vimarsha. And what this means is, vimarsha means it's the unique cause for deliberation between guna is like pros and dosha is like cons, or goodness and badness. So the mind has this unique cause where it functions to keep deliberating on is this good or is this not good? Is this a positive thing or is this not a positive thing? Should I do this or should I not do this? Will this be good for me? Will this be not good for me? So it's that kind of thing which keeps on swinging between two. That is called the mind. So that's the uniqueness of the mind. The unique cause of the mind is it swings between these two things. And then when it comes to the intellect, the uniqueness of the intellect is niscayātma. Niscayātma means it's the one that determines, right? So the mind can say, should I eat this or should I not eat this? And it will swing in both ways. And then the intellect will say, eat. Eat. That determination is the intellect. In the intellect. So one is like, it's almost like one is the employer and one is the employee. And that's why one is called the doer. The intellect is called the doer. It's like the employer. And the mind is like the employed, the one that's being employed or used. And that's why it's called the instrument. So the intellect is like the doer, the one employing, ordering. And the mind is that which is being employed. Hence you have this. And we say that one is inner and one is outer because the employer, that is inner, and the one that's being employed is outer. The doubts, and another reason is the doubts that we have, they're more outer, but the clarity within, that's inner. The doubts come on the surface level, but the clarity comes inner. Another reason is that the mind is also that instrument which goes through the senses to perceive the world. So it goes through the senses to experience the world, and then it's as though it presents it to the intellect, which is the inner part, the intellect, to judge, for the intellect to decide what to do with all of this information. So the mind, it goes through the eyes, the ears, the nose, etc., to gather everything, and then it presents it to the intellect, and the intellect says, okay, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. So they say that the mind is outer and the intellect is inner. And also the mind functions in known realms. So the mind is able to think and feel and things that it knows or is familiar with it. But the intellect has a capacity to go to the unknown. So in Vedanta, whenever we speak about gaining knowledge, we always speak about intellect, buddhi. Why? Because it's very determined, it's very clear, and it has the capacity to go to the unknown. Mind has this capacity to just revel in the known fields. So for this reason, they are separated. They are both thoughts. So they are both thoughts. They are both unique causes for something, and that's why they're called instrument. They are both in antaha. They are both inner in the fact that they're both cognizing thoughts, which is something inner, which is something subtle. But the mind is that which is employed, and the intellect is the employer. So that's why the intellect is the doer and the mind is that which is the instrument. One is inner, one is outer, with respect to each other. Parasparam means with respect to each other. And this word is important because the next verse, it's going to say that both are actually outer. There's something inner, right? So in this way, Swami Vidyāraṇya ji says, this is why we're differentiating both of them. And we have already seen the reasons why we are not the mind and we are not the intellect. Now, Swami Vidyāraṇya ji is going to go to the subtlest sheath or the subtlest kosha. That is called the manomaya-kośa, right? So now we're in verse number 9. Kachit antarmukha vrittihi, kachit antarmukha vrittihi, ananda pratibimba bhag, ananda pratibimba bhag, punya bhoge bhoga shantau, punya bhoge bhoga shantau, nidra rupena liyate, nidra rupena liyate, kachit antarmukha vrittihi, ananda pratibimba bhag, punya bhoge bhoga shantau, nidra rupena liyate. So now he says there is something even more inner. And what is it? He said kachit, kachit. Sometimes antarmukha vrittihi. Antarmukha means there's an inner, there's a subtler vritti. That's an inner thought. And what is it? Anandamaya pratibimba bhak. It experiences pratibimba, the reflection of ananda, of the self, which is of the nature of ananda. It experiences the reflection of the self, which is of the nature of ananda. And when is this experienced? Punya bhoge, when there is the enjoyment of our merits. And bhoga shantau, when there is the silence or the cessation of all of our enjoyments, nidra rupena, in deep sleep, liyate, it merges or dissolves in deep sleep. So there is a position or function of the intellect which, at the time of enjoying the fruits of good actions, it goes a little further inward and it catches the reflection of bliss. And at the end of this enjoyment, it merges in deep sleep. This is known as the sheath of bliss. So what is this Anandamaya-kośa? So this is a very subtle thing. So when we look, first we'll look at the manomaya-kośa, the mind sheath. And then we're going to look at Anandamaya-kośa, just so we can see the difference. In the mind sheath, or manomaya-kośa, we enjoy, or we experience rather, thoughts of joy and sorrow. This is where we experience joy and sorrow. We have joyful experiences, we have sorrowful experiences. You know, when we meet someone who we haven't met for a long time, we have such a wonderful time with them. It's a joyful experience. When we lose someone whom we love, it's a sorrowful experience. And this is in the mind sheath all the time. When we're experiencing these things or these people, we still have that object with us. So let us say we are having a great time with our friend is there and the thought of our friend is there, and we are having a great conversation, we're enjoying our time together, walking together, everything is there, and the friend is there, the vishaya, the object is there. Now in Anandamaya-kośa, or bliss sheath, what happens is the object is dropped. The object is not there anymore. So in Anandamaya-kośa, the names of the thoughts we experience are called priya, moda, and pramoda. And we saw this earlier also, but again, I'll just elaborate because here it's coming. Priya, moda, and pramoda. And priya literally means that when we see something, our mind just goes inward into a silence. So we drop the object. So for example, we see our friend whom we haven't seen for a long time, right? Our first reaction is, wow, it's so great to meet you. But our reaction could also be like, wow. You know, like we just close our eyes. That closing our eyes, silencing ourselves, dropping the thought of the friend, dropping that object itself, that's going to Anandamaya-kośa. That's going to Anandamaya-kośa. Manomaya-kośa, you saw your friend and you're holding your friend, you're so happy, you're just holding your friend's hand and you're talking to your friend. That is manomaya-kośa. Anandamaya-kośa is the thought of moda now. Moda means on holding something, you go within. You just close your eyes and you're like, wow. You drop the friend, you drop that object and you go within. So on holding, you go within. And then manomaya-kośa is when you see that friend, you give your friend a big, big hug, and you're just so happy to be with that friend. And in Anandamaya-kośa, the thought of pramoda now is that you're holding your friend, you're becoming one with that object, but you drop the object, you drop the friend, you close your eyes, you go within. That's Anandamaya-kośa. So Anandamaya-kośa, mostly it's these experiences where we close our eyes and we drop the object. We drop the object and we just feel the bliss that's coming from within. So Anandamaya-kośa is actually a proof that we have to drop the object to feel that reflection of bliss. We have to drop it. So anytime that we've touched Anandamaya-kośa, right? Anytime we've touched it, either through listening to some beautiful music. Sometimes we close our eyes. Anytime we've touched Anandamaya-kośa, we've dropped the object. And what we've done is we've closed our eyes because the mind, intellect have become so silent. The bliss of the self is totally evident. It's so incredibly evident at that point in time. So the object outside, all it's doing is it's triggering us to go within. So objects, things that we experience outside, things that we enjoy, they're just triggers. And even in reality, the object is not the trigger. Our likes and dislikes for that object is the trigger, right? Because some people may like this friend, some people may not like this friend. So when we like something, it triggers us to experience it. And when we experience it deeply, dropping it, we touch Anandamaya-kośa. That's what happens. So that's why it's an antarmukha-vritti. It's a very, very subtle thought. Very subtle thought. Very subtle. And our whole journey is that we want to move from manomaya-kośa to anandamaya-kośa. This is what we want to do. We want that every time we're experiencing bliss, we want it to touch anandamaya-kośa. We want to go to a place where we lose ourselves. We want to lose ourselves in that moment. That's what we want to do. And as I mentioned before, that's why this Anandamaya-kośa is, it can be triggered by different things. It's not only triggered by sattvic things like beautiful music or a sunrise or meeting someone we love. It could also be triggered by, sadly, alcohol and drugs. And that's why people use that to go to Anandamaya-kośa, right? It also could be triggered by a very rajasic thing, people listening to loud music, and so somehow they find peace in all of that. And that thought goes with it. So this is what we mean by antarmukha. This is much, much inner, much subtler. Why? Because it's dropping the object. If you see in manomaya-kośa and vijñānamaya-kośa, the object is still there. The object, even if it's a thought, an emotion, a concept, the object is still there in your mind. Even if it's an abstract object, it's still there. But in Anandamaya-kośa, you drop the object. When you drop the object, what does it hold then? Anandamaya-pratibimba. So it holds the reflection of bliss. Holds the reflection of bliss. That's what it holds. Very peacefully. So the beauty about Anandamaya-kośa is that its ability to express all Sat, Chit, Ananda. When we look at the body and the pranas, they only manifest the Sat or existence aspect. They only manifest the existence aspect because they are there. They are there. So they exist. They exist. They temporarily exist, but they exist. And when it comes to the mind and intellect, they manifest both Sat and Chit aspects because they are there, they are experienced, and they are also conscious. Not of their own accord, but they're conscious. They're conscious entities, the mind and intellect. And when it comes to Anandamaya-kośa or the bliss sheath, it has that ability to manifest Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, also Ananda, great deal of bliss. And so different people will experience different levels of this bliss. The more that our triggers are sattvic, the more sattvic triggers that we have, the more sattvic we become, the more deeper that bliss will express. More deeper that bliss will express. And that's very evident when we go to Taittiriya Upanishad and when we analyze it. Those who who are more sattvic, who live subtler lives, they experience more of the Anandamaya-kośa. And now, when do we experience this? I want to experience bliss. Why am I not experiencing this? Punya bhoge. So whenever the results of our good actions fructify, so all the good actions that we performed, their results fructify, then we have this opportunity to experience bliss. Then things will be presented in front of us for us to experience this bliss. So know that whenever our punya or results of good actions are coming, that is our time to experience bliss. And in that time, we are exhausting the results of our good actions also. We're exhausting them. And whenever the results of bad actions come and we experience them, those are called papas, we're exhausting them. So when bad things come to us, don't worry about it. It's okay. We're exhausting them. So now they're going and they're gone. But when also good things come to us, they're going and they're gone, right? So nothing will really last forever. So when there's punya in our lives, then this experience of bliss comes to us. And bhoga shantau, when this all subsides, when we stop enjoying now, because Anandamaya-kośa, these deep, subtle vrittis or thoughts, they can be experienced in waking and dream states. They can be experienced there. In deep sleep, bhoga shanta, when everything is silenced, there's nothing anymore. Everything is, the mind and intellect have merged into the self. Everything is silenced. Then also is that Anandamaya-kośa. Then also that Anandamaya-kośa is experienced in deep sleep. So nidra rupena, it merges in deep sleep, and that is also Anandamaya-kośa. So in waking and dream, it's experienced through priya, moda, pramoda, these subtle thoughts. In deep sleep, it's experienced as sleep. It just folds up, and because it folds up and there's no object, it is just reflecting that bliss. But in the case of deep sleep, it is caused by tamas. The mind is, and the intellect are entering tamasic realm. So they don't know that that is ananda. They don't know that that's ananda, right? And this is called Anandamaya-kośa because we are experiencing the bliss of the self, but we don't know it. That's the problem. So it's called the sheath of ignorance also, because we are experiencing the bliss of the self, we don't know it. We think it's coming from the object, but actually not. It's coming from our very own self. It's coming from our very own self. And it is as silly as us, knowing that we are this face, this is who we are, but yet feeling the need to look at our face in every single mirror out there, right? We feel the need, this is the face, but we feel the need to see the reflection of our face in every single mirror. In the same way, we are that seat of bliss, but we feel the need to see the reflection of bliss in things around us. So this is how lost we are. Now he's going to explain why is it that we are not this Anandamaya-kośa, right? So here now we're on verse 10. Kadachit katvato natma, kadachit katvato natma, syadanandamayopyayam, syadanandamayopyayam, bimbabhutoya anandaha, bimbabhuto ya anandah atmasau sarvada sthitehe atmasau sarvada sthitehe kadachit katvato natma syadanandamayopyayam bimbabhuto ya anandah atmasau sarvada sthitehe. So it says in this verse, ayam, and the last word in the first line, ayam anandamayaha. So this anandamaya-kośa, api, even this anandamaya-kośa, it na atma, it is not atma, na atma syat, it is not the self. Why? Kadachit katva taha. Kadachit katvataha, because it is temporary. Kadachit, it's temporary. It comes and it goes. The experience of this comes and goes. So because the experience of the Anandamaya-kośa comes and goes, it's temporary, it is not the self. What is the self? The second line, yaha anandaha. Ananda is bimba bhutaha. It is that which is the source of this Anandamaya-kośa. That true Ananda, which is Atma, is the source of Anandamaya-kośa. That is Atma. And that asau sarvada stitehe. That is immutable all the time. It remains as it is all the time. It is eternal. It's eternal. So when we talk about this Anandamaya-kośa, so one thing is that it comes and it goes, right? We don't get to experience Anandamaya-kośa all the time. In the waking state and dream state, there are days where we don't. There are many, many days where we don't experience Anandamaya-kośa. And even in deep sleep state, there are sometimes we can't sleep. We don't experience Anandamaya-kośa, right? And not only that, but there's different gradations. Sometimes it's a deeper reflection of bliss. Sometimes not so deep. Deeper reflection, sometimes not so deep. This Anandamaya-kośa is also caused. It's caused by punya. It's caused by merit. When there are results of good actions, then I experience it. Otherwise, I don't experience it. It's caused. But when we look at the self is ever there. It does not come and go. It is ever there. And there's no, there's no gradation. There's no gradation to the happiness that we are. And it is not caused. It is uncaused. So the Ananda that is within, that is a real nature, it's not caused. It's permanent. It's unchanging. And the most beautiful thing about this Ananda, which is our real nature, is it's effortless. We don't have to do anything to be happy, right? We don't do anything to be happy. I told you before about the story of the unhappiest man. I don't know if you remember it, but I'll share it with you again. There was a man who was incredibly unhappy, super grouchy. He's so old, old. He's like 79 years old. He's so grouchy. And everywhere he went, he was just a big grouch. And that's why nobody wanted to talk to him or interact with him, because he's always grouchy. And finally, his 80th birthday came. It was his 80th birthday, and they lived in a small village, right? And so everyone was invited for his birthday because it was his 80th birthday, and his family had to be there. They have no choice. When you're family, you have no choice to accept everybody, right? And so his 80th birthday, all of a sudden, he started smiling. And everyone around him was just surprised at why he was smiling. And when they asked him, he said, well, For 79 years, I kept on trying to be happy. Now I have finally stopped trying. And now I'm actually happy. I'm actually happy. So happiness, we realize our true nature as happiness when we stop trying. When we keep trying, all that we're going to experience at most is antara-indriya. But when we stop trying and just be, then we are already that. Nothing more. We can just revel in that. So all this teaching is to tell us that. That is our nature. It's an effortless, it's an infinite, and it's an independent happiness. It doesn't depend on anything. It doesn't depend on any object, any person, anything, anywhere, at any time, any circumstance. We have access to that source of bliss. Anytime. We just have to learn how to tune into it. That's all. It's a very intuitive thing. You just have to learn how to tune into it and to recognize it. Now, the student says, you have told me all about these kośas, but I have a question for you. And now we go to verse 11. Nanu dehamupakramya nidranandantavastushu mabhutatmatvamanyastu na kaścit anubhuyate nanu dehamupakramya nidranandantavastushu mabhutatmatvamanyastu na kaścit anubhuyate. So he says, okay, you have explained to me all of these 5 sheaths. But, deham upakramya, having started from the body, nidranandanta vastushu, until nidrananda. Nidrananda means until that bliss of deep sleep, until that bliss of deep sleep, which is anandamaya-kośa, vastushu, in that ma bhut atmatvam. It is the not self. It is not atma. We cannot consider that to be atma. They are not the self. Anyahatu, but other than that, na kaścit anubhuyate, but we don't experience anything other than that. So there must not be anything else. So what he's saying is, by granting that the sheaths, beginning with that of the food and ending in that of the bliss, they are not the self, yet no further object remains to be experienced. So therefore, this student is saying, there must be nothing. There must be nothing then. Now, here is where we have to dig a little bit deeper. When we see, let us say, the moon, it's night now and we see the moon in the sky, and the moon is, let us say, reflected in a bucket of water. And when the moon is reflected in a bucket of water, we can clearly see the reflection of the moon. But when you take away the water and you take away everything, say you negate everything, you take away everything, does that mean that there's no moon? No, there has to be a moon for there to be a reflection. right? So in the same way, what this is going to point to is that there has to be an experiencer for all of this to be experienced. If you're saying that, yeah, okay, all of this is not Atma, the food sheath, the vital air sheath, the mind sheath, the intellect sheath, the bliss sheath, it's not Atma, there's nothing else. Well, if we're experiencing all of this, then there must be something deeper. So what is that? So that we will take up in the next class. From the next verse on, we will take up in the next class. The next verses now in this chapter will be very beautiful. It will unfold the nature of Atma. We will get more and more clarity of Atma now that we have crossed the 5 sheets. Okay? So just to summarize what we've done today. So what we've seen today is that Swami Vidyāraṇya ji in verse 8, he divides the mental sheath and the intellect sheath. He divides it into 2 because of their functions. Why? The mental sheath is more like an instrument that is being employed. The intellectual sheath is more like a doer, an employer that employs it. So one is slightly outside the mental sheath, one is slightly inside. And that's why he is divided it. And also because the mind goes outside to gather all information, then presents it to the intellect, which is inside. So for more clarity's sake, he does that. What is inner to that? Inner to that is what we call the antara-indriya or the bliss sheath. That is a very, very subtle thought. Why is it subtle? It's a subtle thought because it's a kind of thought that drops the object to be, drops the object. It doesn't need any object. On experiencing something, it lets the object go and then it goes inward. And when it goes inward, it captures the reflection of bliss of our true nature. And that's why it's subtler. And this happens when we gain the results of our good actions. And this, so in waking and dream, and this also happens in deep sleep when everything ceases. We experience the antara-indriya. Can we be that antara-indriya? No, because it's temporary. It comes and it goes. It has gradation. It is an object of experience, and it is caused by something. Whereas our true nature as bliss is uncaused, it's ever there, it's effortless, it's independent of anything, and it is infinite. That is who we are. And then the student goes to ask, well, if all of this is not the self, then there must be nothing else. But there is, right? And that's what we will see next time. Okay, so we'll say the closing prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.